Freedom Hall. For more than a half century, it has been a Louisville landmark. I'm Eric Crawford for thecourierjournal.com. The Hall has hosted many great games and teams: the Final Four, the Kentucky Colonels, state high school basketball championships. A young Louisville boxer named Cassius Clay fought here, and Freedom Hall itself withstood a tornado in 1974. But Freedom Hall is probably best known to most as the home of University of Louisville basketball. And though the court has changed over the years, much of Freedom Hall appears as it has for decades. Soon, the Cardinals will finish their final season in Freedom Hall before moving to a state-of-the-art downtown arena. But before that, join me for a final look at Louisville's old basketball home. We'll go back through the years, hear from some Louisville legends, as well as some people who watched them turn Freedom Hall into the home of hoops history in Louisville.
You know, when we walk in Freedom Hall, you know, every player who played there and every fan who's been a Louisville fan, it's just a big building full of memories that you're going to miss. And it's just like leaving your childhood neighborhood or leaving your childhood home, and you move on. But you know, to this day, you know, the house that I grew up in on 41st and Hill, I mean, the memories there are everlasting, and that's what Freedom Hall will be to this community.
Playing for Louisville, being the home team, it seemed like, and I'm not just making this up, it seemed like during a crunch time when the score was close and maybe when we were behind, you know, you could shoot the shot and the crowd would get behind you, and it seems like the crowd would go whoosh and just sort of make the ball go in the basket. I mean, you know, that's just how it seemed.
When you walked on the floor, you knew you were in a special place. Freedom Hall had to the people that may not, you know, have seen it or experienced it or weren't born at that time, Freedom Hall was one of the top venues to play in the country. So when the lights would come on, you just knew you were in a special place.
That was the biggest arena I think I'd ever been in. I don't remember being in a bigger one. And I thought, well, they really like their basketball back here. And that was a fun time, because I had no idea at that time that I would have an opportunity to coach here.
Like Fenway Park and Wrigley Field, great place to see a game. You know, just say if you get a chance to see a game at Freedom Hall, it's like Fenway, it's like Wrigley. You know, you want to go there. It's an event because it's a great place to see a game, because I think the sight lines are great. I don't think there's a bad seat in the house. Maybe, you know, sitting behind the basket way up high is not the best, but, you know, I don't think there's a bad seat out of 19,500.
The University of Louisville basketball team first took the Freedom Hall court on December 22, 1956. Charlie Tyree scored 40 points in an 85-75 victory over Notre Dame. Between then and 1965, the Cards drew about 6,000 per game. But attendance began to jump in the mid-1960s when an average of 11,000 per game came to Freedom Hall to watch center Wes Unseld. The end of the 1960s brought the last Final Four to Freedom Hall, and with it, an assistant coach for UCLA named Denny Crum, who was coaching one of the hottest centers in the nation, Lou Alcindor. In the stands that night was an 11-year-old Louisville kid named Darrell Griffith.
Going to Freedom Hall and seeing Lou Alcindor, I mean, that was, at the time, it was just amazing to see how big he was, and watching them play Purdue with Rick Mount, because, you know, we get a lot of their coverage in Louisville, so it was fun. It was great. You know, I mean, we didn't realize the magnitude of what we just thought was a basketball game, 11-year-old, but that was the finals of the NCAA champions. We had 6 of them, you know, and that's amazing. That just lets you know how prevalent and how prestige Freedom Hall was at that time. And too many places that could hold the finals of the NCAA tournament, and we were lucky to get chosen 6 times.
Crum took over the program in 1971 for a 30-year run that launched Louisville basketball into the national picture in a way it had never been before.
I felt like we were in a position where we could win a national championship simply because of the location. I felt like we could recruit in 360 degrees and really enhance the numbers that we would have possibly available to us. And I really think for the most part, you know, we made a living off of kids from the South. I mean, if you go back and guys like Purvis and from Savannah, Georgia, and Wiley Brown and Derek Smith, and the kids that we recruited out of the South, when they came up here to visit and saw this arena and the number of people that we put in it and stuff, I mean, they wanted to be a part of that type of a basketball program. And I know they had some great players before I came here, guys like Wes Unseld and Butch Beard and a lot of those kind of players that were outstanding that I didn't get to coach but had a world of respect for. And they were one of the reasons that I felt like this could be, I said, if there's players like that in this area, then, you know, we can be competitive on a national scale. And but you know, you go all the way through. You guys guys like Philip Bond that turned out to be from Manual right next door here, and it turned out to be a really good guard.
My first game at Freedom Hall was in high school, actually. I went to Manual High School, and the first game that I played there was in the LIT my junior year, and it was just amazing. I just loved it. And at U of L, there were so many memories. The one thing about Freedom Hall playing for U of L that I remember, just sort of the overriding thing about it, is we almost always won. I went back and checked the record books just to make sure that I was right. And I noticed that the 4 years that I played at Louisville, we only lost 5 games at Freedom Hall. And I think 2 of those years we didn't lose any games. So just that winning atmosphere, it was a lot of fun.
The favorite memory that I have of Freedom Hall is basketball related, but we didn't play a game. That was when they had waved the card home after we won the national championship. You know, they had 20,000 people, you know, to come and celebrate us winning the national championship, and in particular because it was our first national championship. You know, and also, you know, it was long overdue, and we were, you know, always on the cuff of almost winning one in '75 and '72. And more particularly from a personal level is when I decided to go to the University of Louisville. You know, I was the #1 high school player in the nation, and Dick Shapp did a story on me. And they wanted to know, whenever I made that decision to go, they wanted to come to a press conference. And at that press conference, you know, I said before I leave that we won a national championship. So that whole night just summed up everything for me.
It was a different time. Students got in free. You know, before they did the remodel, there were no suites. There were great, you know, there's always been great games, but when I go out there now, the rivalries, maybe because, you know, it's a different with the Big East, but the playing the Cincinnati, playing the Memphises, playing the St. Louis teams, it just seems like the rivalry was a little bit more intense.
Our rivalry with Memphis, I mean, we had so many great games and close games against them in this building, and to beat them was probably the difference between having a chance to go to a Final Four and not.
In 1986, Louisville and Memphis State those two teams were so competitive, whoever took the last shot is usually going to win the game. That's how good they were. You couldn't stop one or the other from scoring because they were so prolific offensively, the players on those teams. And the Cardinals came down, and they either were behind like a point. Yeah, I think they were behind 1 point. And Milt Wagner went to the right side to take a shot, and the Memphis State guard fouled him. And so the fans are going crazy. I mean, here the Cardinals are behind. Milt Wagner's got 2 shots. He's walking around giving the V sign. We got this. He's still got to go shoot 2 free throws, you know, but he's assuring the fans, we got this wrapped up. And that's why they call him the Iceman, I guess. He steps to the free throw line. He hits the first free throw. He hits the second one. That was the margin of victory, his 2 free throws. So I'm broadcasting that place. I have never heard Freedom Hall as thunderous as it was that day. It was unbelievable. Right behind me, I looked 2 rows back, and a man had a heart attack, and the emergency people are coming in to take care of him. And so we're giving the scoring and talking about the game. We look up, and the high rise up there's another heart attack. They had 2 emergency units have to come in. Most exciting time I ever remember in Freedom Hall, but I hated to see people have a heart attack over a basketball game. But it was pretty important to the fans who were there.
The Crum era came to a close at the end of the 2000 season and a first-round defeat in the Conference USA tournament. Louisville wasted no time in finding a familiar face to take over as the head man in Freedom Hall, hiring a coach who had brought much success to that other team some 80 miles down Interstate 64.
It wasn't hard coming in here as the Kentucky coach because so many Kentucky fans got in. You know, when we were really good and they were down, we were bringing 4,000, 5,000 people in. When Louisville was really good, Kentucky fans couldn't get in. So they were getting in when there were more tickets available when Louisville was down. And I coached against them when, not in the beginning, but the next few years during our heyday, they were down.
While Freedom Hall was routinely rated among the most favored arenas for opposing players, some opposing coaches didn't feel the same way. Bob Huggins, both at Cincinnati and now West Virginia, Tom Crean at Marquette, and of course Mike Dean at Marquette and Memphis coach Dana Kirk were among some coaches that local fans loved to hate.
I never felt it was hostile toward me. You know, I don't feel they were friendly toward me by any stretch of the imagination, but never hostile. I thought I was treated professionally, much different than when I go there. I'm not by the I'm talking about by the fans, not by the people.
Yeah, as famous as a building as Freedom Hall is, the people who filled it up should get more of accolades because we've been in the top in attendance for years. You know, for one, we had the facility to dictate that. We always had a large facility. But, you know, come rain, sleet, or snow, you know, good season, bad season, you know, Louisville fans always come out and support the team.
Soon, the University of Louisville will pack up and leave its Freedom Hall home for the last time. Still, it'll remain a busy place, playing host to horse shows and other major events. Yet, its best basketball days clearly are now in the past. But as we've heard from those who coached and played here, the history made in this hall will echo long after the final horn has sounded.
Yeah, I'll miss Freedom Hall, and I know a lot of the fans will, but the new place, if it turns out like I think it will, it'll be a pleasure to be a part of that also.